Election Day is fast approaching, and during this special Vote 2020 election preview, we are breaking down the ballot questions and the biggest races so you are prepared to head to the polls. Baltimore will be electing a new mayor. Presumed frontrunner and City Council President Brandon Scott, Republican Shannon Wright, and Independent Bob Wallace are all running to be the city's next leader. There is a race to replace Scott as City Council President. Democratic candidate Nick Mosby is facing a Republican challenger, Jovani Patterson. And there are questions whether Mosby's recent tax troubles could impact the race. In the race for Maryland's 7th congressional district, the late Elijah Cummings seat in the U.S. House, Republican Kimberly Klacik seeks to unseat Democratic Representative Kweisi Mfume. We'll be hearing from as many of these candidates as possible over the next half hour.
WBFF in Baltimore. This is a Fox 45 special presentation. Vote 2020.
Thank you for joining us for this Fox 45 Vote 2020 special. I'm Shelley Orman. Now, there are two things all Maryland voters are going to see on their ballots. One looks to give more power to the legislature to move money around. Lawmakers would be able to increase, decrease, or add items to the state budget. They would still be limited to the total budget offered by the governor. Maryland is the only state in the country where lawmakers are not able to transfer or add items to the governor's annual budget. Supporters say this will give state lawmakers more of a say, but opponents argue it is a power grab by Democrats in control of the legislature. If approved, this would take effect in 2024. Now, the second question aims to generate more tax revenue for the state by legalizing sports betting. Several other states, including Delaware, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., all allow people to place bets on sports. Authorizing this in Maryland could generate up to $40 million in tax revenue. That money would go directly to schools. We talked with David Williams with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance about the pros and the cons.
There are a couple of red flags here. First of all, everyone talks about the revenue, and they look at the sports betting revenue. They estimate about $20 million a year in revenue from sports betting, but I'm a little suspicious of that because we always see the states say, well, we're going to institute this and we're going to bring in this amount of money. They usually never do. If they say, okay, well, we're going to get $20 million extra for education, we're going to spend more on education. Well, what if that $20 million doesn't come in and they've already committed that money? So there are a few red flags here, but all in all, I mean, it will bring in money to the state.
Now, there are also regional questions in Baltimore City. Several charter amendments are up for a vote. Questions A through D ask voters to greenlight bonds to pay for projects. Question E would require a commission to review the city's charter every 10 years. Question I is tied to the corruption scandal of former Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh. It asks voters to give the city council the authority to oust a sitting mayor due to misconduct. Right now, members do not have that power. Now, question F boosts the city council's authority over the budget. Questions G and H would make it easier to override a mayoral veto and give more time to do so. Voters in Baltimore County will also see question A. If passed, it would create a fund to match political donations given to local candidates. The goal of that is to reduce the amount of money, outside money, influencing county elections. Other counties in Maryland have this already, including Montgomery and Prince George's. And the rest deal with allowing the county to borrow money for projects. Voters in Howard County are asked question C. The goal is to expand the group of people protected from discrimination. It would change the definition, removing the word sex and replacing it with gender identity or expression. We have a full list of each of these questions in every county. It's on our website. Just head to foxbaltimore.com. Baltimore City will be electing a new mayor November 3rd. The candidates include the presumed frontrunner in this race, City Council President Brandon Scott, Republican Shannon Wright, and Independent Bob Wallace. We asked all of them, what is your plan to reduce violence in Baltimore City? Wright said she'll start with bringing police officers back.
When you ask the officers, they will tell you things started to change when we got away from community policing. We need to get back to that, not sometime soon, but now.
Independent Bob Wallace says the city needs to crack down on the, quote, bad players wreaking havoc.
I'm going to focus on the hot people, which is the people committing the crimes, and the hot spots where it's occurring. We have to get to a point where people understand we're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior in our city.
Fox 45 also reached out multiple times to Democratic candidate and City Council President Brandon Scott. We did not hear back. The last time he spoke with us about violence in Baltimore was about a month ago, and this is what he said then.
We have to have the police focused in on the most violent people, most violent organizations, investing in neighborhoods, dealing with trauma, providing opportunity.
Baltimore has not elected a Republican mayor since the 1960s. Here is a breakdown of the mayoral candidates' platforms. Republican Shannon Wright is campaigning as a change candidate in a Democrat-run city. She's pushing to cut red tape and expand opportunity zones to rebuild the economy. She wants to repair school infrastructure and revamp school curriculums. Independent Bob Wallace wants to address crime through education within the first 100 days in office. He's pushing to extend the school day and school year. He also wants to create 100,000 jobs in 4 years. Democrat Brandon Scott has a holistic crime strategy with the goal to reduce homicides by at least 15% each year of his term. Now, he wants increased transparency, and he wants to create a city administrator position. Scott also wants to tap into the rainy day fund in order to stabilize city resources. Voters in Baltimore City will also elect a new city council president, with the current leader, Brandon Scott, campaigning to be the next mayor. Democratic Nick Mosby is no stranger to politics here in Baltimore. He is facing Republican Jovani Patterson, who says the city can't afford to continue down the current path. But Mackenzie Frost reports tax trouble could impact this race.
Nick Mosby and Jovani Patterson vying to be the next city council president. Mosby serving on the city council from 2011 to 2016. Currently, he's a state delegate in the legislature. Requests for an interview to talk about his campaign went unanswered. Mosby's website outlining his priorities: healthcare, improving employment, boosting education, and safe streets. Details are sparse, but during a previous interview with FOX45, Mosby says when it comes to policing in Baltimore, he supports restructuring.
The strategy is not, again, defunding the police. It's just that defunding the amount of money that's going towards law enforcement could be appropriated in other areas to ensure that we're sustainably reducing crime.
Mosby is married to the city's top prosecutor, previously pledging to FOX45 he would recuse himself from potential conflicts of interest with his wife.
That's the standard approach.
On the other side of the aisle, Republican Jovani Patterson. He says the city's problems come down to reducing property taxes.
If we're really serious about bringing economic change, reducing the blighted neighborhoods, reducing the abandoned and vacant homes, increasing the amount of job opportunities within the city, then we have to address this oppressive tax rate.
Patterson says he wants to keep the lights on in city parks to help reduce potential crime and invest more in youth programs. Patterson says the current Democratic leadership do not have the people of Baltimore City's best interests centered in priorities.
They say they do just in front of the news cameras, but when it comes to actual legislation, it's all about zoning changes or name changes or things like that. Any legislation to attract families or to actually attract businesses, is either pushed, withdrawn, or just not even put on the table.
Nick Mosby and Jovani Patterson vying for support to replace Brandon Scott as the next city council president.
A former federal prosecutor Thiru Vignarajah is calling for a charter amendment that would require every citywide election official to release their taxes to avoid another scandal.
There shouldn't be anything to hide. We're rooting for the Mosbys. Either there's nothing wrong with what they did and they should release the taxes and erase this cloud, or there is something wrong and we deserve to know about it. You can choose not to seek public office because you don't want the public scrutiny. That's a reasonable decision that you and your family can make. But if you want the entire city's trust in a city that has such a history of mistrust, the best medicine to corruption is complete transparency, and a charter amendment like this would achieve it.
Well, now we are turning to city council members and the race for District 2 on the northeast side. City council member Danielle McCray, a Democrat, is facing GOP candidate Brendan Joyner-L. This November will be the first general election for McCray. Joyner-L is a political outsider, but says he can spark positive change in the district. McCray says she wants to improve relationships with people who live there. Joyner-L says he's pushing for tougher criminal penalties, fewer liquor stores, and a new public library. The race for City Council District 3 is between an incumbent of 4 years and a Republican outsider looking to bring transparency to City Hall. Democrat incumbent Ryan Dorsey did not respond to our request for an interview. Republican David Wright says he has plans to bring positive change to Baltimore. He wants to target education, community development, and crime.
Crime is caused by a lot of different systemic issues: poverty, untreated mental illness, addiction, unemployment, underemployment, recidivism. So we need to address the socioeconomic ills that face our city so that we can prevent crime from happening on one side of the house, and then on the other side of the house, make sure that we're prosecuting heinous and violent crime.
Republican Wright says he hopes people look past party affiliation while voting. Again, Democrat Ryan Dorsey did not respond to our interview requests. From Reisterstown Road to Pimlico, there are neighborhoods on the northwest side of the city that make up Baltimore's 5th district. The current councilman, Yitchi Slifer, is the youngest member. His opponent, Maria Vismali, is a Republican with her own plan to clean up the city. Schleifer is pushing for DPW workers to get a raise. He has spoken out about DPW concerns in the past, but his opponent does not believe that would solve the city's trash problems.
Giving them such a significant rate increase will certainly help us with retention. We'll have a lot less turnover, and the less turnover we have, the less interruption of service we have.
You can pay people a little bit more. That's great. That'll be a temporary fix. However, that is not going to solve the trash problem. We need a complete overhaul from top to bottom.
Ms. Molly adds people need to feel invested and supported. Now, Fox 45 has created a voter guide with everything you need to know about casting your vote and the information on the key races. To find this, just go to foxbaltimore.com. It is one of the items in the banner that's right at the top of the website. You can click on See More, and that will take you to the complete list of stories, including where you can go to cast your vote. Still ahead in our Vote 2020 coverage, we are taking a look at a race impacting us that is drawing national attention.
And the weather will cooperate for Election Day. I'll let you know exactly what to expect at the polls Tuesday and how this compares to past election days in just a couple of minutes on Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News taking your safety concerns straight to mayoral candidates in exclusive debates.
Voters are focused on violent crime and murder.
The conversation is, you must stop this behavior, and we're going to help you stop.
And it's real difficult for the criminals to take you seriously as an elected official when the prosecutor's under investigation.
Fox 45 News, the voice of the people through our Beyond the Podium election coverage. We answer to you.
Your elected leaders then answer to Fox 45 News, your voice of the people.
There is a special election in Maryland's 7th district for the congressional seat left open after U.S. Representative Elijah Cummings' death. Kweisi Mfume won the Democratic vote in the primary. Mfume served 5 previous terms in Congress, and he led the NAACP. Kimberly Klacik, a Baltimore County Republican Central Committee member, won the Republican vote. She most recently got national attention for her viral campaign ad showing her walking through a blighted neighborhood of West Baltimore. Now, Klacik's campaign focuses on what she calls problems with the city. She's pushing to bring more business through the Port of Baltimore. She says in order to save lives in Baltimore City, there needs to be more job opportunities.
There are no career opportunities in some areas of Baltimore. Like even, having an area where it's called a food desert. That makes no sense. Education here needs to be fixed, right? I think when we have better education, more opportunities, I think the crime will kind of solve itself.
Congressman Mfume beat Klacik back in April and served the remainder of the late Elijah Cummings' term. He says he wants to continue Cummings' legacy of advocacy in the halls of the Capitol.
Well, what you've got to be is a cheerleader. You've got to be an advocate for this district. And that's what I want to do. I want to replace Elijah's advocacy with my own.
Mfume's fundraising brought in just over $183,000 last quarter. Klacik brought in $6.4 million. Back here in Baltimore, our coverage of the city council races continues now. Leon Pinkett is the 7th district councilman, and he's not running for re-election, opening up the seat for new plans. Republican Christopher Anderson is facing Democrat James Torrance. Torrance's platform includes much of the same from other Democrats looking to win a seat on the council: safer streets, evidence-based violence reduction plans, and more jobs by incentivizing hiring high school grads with industry certificates. Republican Christopher Anderson is zeroing in on 2 specific issues that aren't new to voters in the city: opioid abuse and people returning to prison. He adds investing in people and the area will help curb crime. The city council's 12th district is held by a Democrat who is no stranger to public office. Robert Stokes clinched his first city council win in 2016. He's facing 2 challengers, Republican Eugene Boyke and Green Party candidate Franca Mueller. The challengers spoke about their plans to make safety a priority in a district that's home to crime. Stokes did not respond to our request to discuss his plans.
My plan is to continue bringing community on the ground, not about just legislation, the human touch, bringing community.
Are there things that we could attack at the root level that could stop people from going down the path that causes someone to commit a crime in the first place?
Mueller-Paz wants to bring back recreation centers and invest more in schools to keep kids engaged and away from crime. Boyke says partnerships with police should be a priority for City Hall to reduce crime. Now for a full check of your voting forecast, we're going to send it over to meteorologist Amy Aronson.
Yeah, Shelley, we're actually going to take a look back at prior Election Day forecasts. The warmest Election Day on record was in 1971, reached a very warm 84 degrees, compared to the coldest in 1879, only a high of 41 that day. The wettest was in 1943. They picked up about 7/10 of an inch of rain, and all these numbers come from BWI Airport. Now, because the exact day of Election Day isn't always the same, here's a look at what you can expect on November 3rd typically. So the almanac for November 3rd shows the average high of 61. The average low of 40. We're not too far from those numbers, so pretty near normal temperatures this Election Day with a forecasted high of 56 and a forecasted low, a chilly low of 34 degrees. The record high for November 3rd stands at 80 from 2003, and the record low dipped down to 25 back in 1951. So now here's a look at what to expect for this Election Day. I have temperatures thrown on here too because we actually are looking at a quiet weather pattern with high pressure nudging in from the south and from the west, and that's going to help bring our numbers up. So we should see temperatures climb into the low 50s by lunchtime. By day's end, they peak briefly in the low to mid 50s before dropping back off as we head through Tuesday evening. So when the polls close, I think temperatures will be falling back through the mid and low 40s. And that's exactly what our planner shows. We'll start off with sunny skies. So if you plan to be at the polls early Tuesday morning, we start off near freezing. You're going to want to have that winter jacket. But if you plan to hold off till lunchtime or during the afternoon, it's actually going to be comfortable waiting in line. Not only do we have sunny skies overhead, we have temperatures just shy of normal, brings us into the mid 50s during the afternoon. And then as the polls come to a close, we are looking at clear skies overhead. Remember, sunset's very early, coming up around 5 o'clock, so it will be dark for the final 2 hours there, final couple of hours there, and that's going to cause our temperatures to fall and fall quickly back into the upper and mid 40s. Shelley?
Thank you, Amy. If you are voting in person, there are going to be COVID-19 restrictions. Up next, the precautions in place to keep you safe. And then the team effort happening now to ensure the election's integrity. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning.
Fox 45 News Operation Crime and Justice.
Working to save our city.
Shedding a spotlight on your story.
I had a husband shot and killed by a police officer, and it is not right.
Then demanding accountability.
Holding officers accountable hinges on key areas of policing you don't normally hear that much about until there's a deadly encounter.
Choose Fox 45 News to fight corruption on your behalf.
We answer to you.
Your elected leaders then answer to Fox 45 News, your voice of the people.
If you are voting in person in Baltimore City, you will not have to get your temperature taken. But as Mackenzie Frost tells us, Marylanders will see other pandemic precautions when they go to cast their ballots.
Depending on where you vote, there might be different COVID-19 precautions and restrictions in place, but make sure you bring your mask, maybe even your patience, if you want to vote in person. COVID-19 may not be directly on the ballot, but signs of the pandemic will be present during election season. Social distancing, hand sanitizer, and masks will be seen during early voting and on Election Day. Anne Arundel County will be taking temperatures for workers but not voters. Baltimore County says social distancing will be enforced. Because of social distancing and increased sanitation plans, there might be a way to fill out a ballot. COVID-19 is a driving factor for the state pushing for people to vote by mail. Several people Fox 45 News has talked to about voting cite COVID concerns for not going to the polls.
I just felt like it was safer to do it this way.
I don't want to be around a lot of people right now.
In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
On Election Day, voting centers will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and anyone in line by 8 p.m. will be able to vote. If you are voting by mail, those mail-in ballots must be postmarked or placed in a designated drop box by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd. But we do have a message if you're voting by mail. The Maryland State Board of Elections says if you've not returned your mail-in ballot, then put it in a drop box. They say don't try to mail it now. They believe delayed mail reports are mounting, and they say drop boxes are a safe, convenient, and reliable option. When it comes to election integrity, it is all hands on deck. The FBI, governor, and Maryland State Police say they're partnering to bolster security and identify and disrupt any threats. The State Board of Elections is tasked with ensuring voting systems are secure.
The software that we use in the voting system is certified software by the federal government. The scanners at each polling place are just connected to power. The results are tabulated on a removable thumb drive that is driven back to the election office.
Nikki Charlson adds not only does Maryland utilize paper ballots, they also audit submitted tickets. Now, if you see voting irregularities or if you're denied access to casting your ballot, please contact authorities and report it to FOX45 News. Call, tweet, or send a picture to 443-613-6327. You can also reach out to us on Facebook at Fox Baltimore.
Save our schools. That's our job at Fox 45 News, Project Baltimore.
Your emails, calls, tips, your responses led us to investigate.
Fox 45 had to sue city schools over public records relating to grade changing.
They tell you what to put down.
Demanding accountability for students being failed by city schools.
This is a damning letter.
To save our schools, we answer to you.
Your elected leaders then answer to Fox 45 News.
Your voice of the people.
Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Voting centers will close at 8 o'clock Tuesday night. Mail-in ballots must be postmarked by Tuesday or put in a drop box by Tuesday at 8 p.m. The Maryland Board of Elections, though, is recommending you use drop boxes. We want to thank you for joining us for our Fox 45 Vote 2020 election special. I'm Shelley Norman.